Alrighty. So this morning I got this research study sent through Facebook from University of Sydney. It's got the names Ilan Nimrod. I had a look at him. I had a look at Patrick Lewis, his honor student, for the study. And it concerned me straight away a couple things. So I dug into it a little bit and I want to share that with you. Okay. So the first red flag is when you actually click on the QR code or whatever, you get this name, James Moriandi, postgraduate supervisor at the University of Sydney, and he's at the Gender Centre. Now, about a couple of years ago, we had a report from the Aborigines in Katoomba that the Gender Centre was running a kind of a gender centre camp for 2 weeks. And the concern was that 10 Aboriginal girls went in and 8 trans men came out. So that's number one. So that might be hearsay because we haven't got videos or anything to prove it, but it's a big red flag straight there. Second red flag is when I go into the Gender Centre, it's essentially just a trans lobby. Third red flag is that Polaris, its magazine, is funded by ILGA, I-L-G-A. Remember, they're the organization that lost their ECOSOC status with the United Nations because of their affiliation with 2 pedophile organizations, PI, Pedophile Information Exchange, and NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association. And what I notice, of course, is in its resources, it ties everything straight away to PrEP and PEP, same old, same old. So what's very clear is in this research group, they have someone who is profoundly gender identity pro. So it's there's a conflict of interest there. I say this is not an impartial survey. Second thing that we notice straight away is definitions. You know, what is transgender or gender diverse child? Now, are we transgender? Are we talking transsexual? Are we talking social transition for taking something, or someone who's just feeling like this? They're a different gender or non-binary, or which seems to be a bit of a fad now. What's the actual definition of that? So that's a concern there. The other concern there is they've got a lot of definitions here and there's no interpretation of them at all. There's no definition about what they mean about queer or pansexual or asexual. Now, if you're dealing with a child that are under 18, so if you're dealing with a child who's 4 or 8, why would you be asking these questions? How would you know? Most of the kids wouldn't know that kind of stuff till maybe 11 or something, or 10, who knows? Questioning asexual, queer, bisexual, gay, lesbian, straight. Why would anybody be asking those questions around 4 years old? Say, for example, 6 or 8 or 9 or 10. So that's a bit of a worry right there. Secondly, what about the legitimacy of this test? I noticed there was some really poor, low quality surveys before by different trans lobbies around the suicide thing. And what they did, one, it was online, which this one is. There's no means to ensure that you've actually got people that you're actually aiming for. Anyone can sit this test. You don't really know who they are. There's no names taken, apart from maybe an email. Well, actually, there's none. That's not even asked for either. All you've got down here is please provide the last 3 digits of your mobile phone for either parent. But there's nothing identifying about. You can lie. And then as well as that, you can lie. And if you want to, you can sit this a number of times so you're in for a draw for a Visa gift card. So it's online. It doesn't really seem to have much in the way of legitimacy as a test. Then there's some more definitions around here. Again, the transgender, gender diverse. Here's a definition they've got of gender dysphoria. They don't have a definition for gender identity at all, by the way. Gender dysphoria is a term used to describe the distress transgender and gender diverse individuals may experience due to incongruence between their assigned gender. So now we're talking in the area of people who believe in gender identity. Everything's assigned, as in not a sex that's observed, and their gender identity, which is assumed. Okay, is your gender diverse child under 18 years? And what is a gender diverse child? Is it same-sex attracted? Or is it someone who, believes that they are a different gender? Or what? Okay. Again, you've got this kind, is your gender diverse currently attracted to? Please respond. How would you know if they're a child? Okay, too early to tell. At least that's something. And what was your sex? What sex was your gender diverse child assigned at birth? So this is very much looking like a bias. Now here's something, what they've got here. How old in years was your transgender or gender diverse child the first time they told you about their authentic gender identity? I've got an issue with that because a whole bunch of researchers came together to look for a gender identity. There's no evidence of it at all. And we do know that it was an invention by people like Robert Stoller, popularized by John Money, pedophile. It was based on a disproven theory by John Money, famously disproven when he tried to raise a boy as a girl who was had his penis cut off from a botched circumcision. And that kid, it re-identified with their sex, and both the twins suicided. It was just horrific. And then here's the thing too. What year did you learn your child's transgender diverse? That's okay, you got a number. But here, how old in years was your transgender or gender diverse child when you first suspect they might not identify with their birth assigned gender? So, for example, I was trying to write, I refuse to accept the term birth assigned gender. It's a political and shouldn't be in the survey. But the response is you've got to enter a number. Same here. How old in years was your transgender or gender diverse first time they were told you about their authentic gender identity? You can put a question mark here, and of course that was rejected. And the problem with that, there was nothing there that actually there was no fields that people could comment about whether or not they understood the question, whether or not it made sense, whether they disagreed with the question. I mean, there's an interesting concept in Japan, whereas you can ask a question that's yes or no, but they also have, instead of having yes or no, they also have a word called mu, M-U, which means that the question that you ask isn't going to get a yes or no, nor will it get any truthful answer because it's a badly phrased question. This is mu. Okay. I'm starting to see that this is basically a leading or bias study because the assumption is there is a gender identity when that's hotly debated. It's usually assigned to the gender affirmation space as opposed to evidence-based. So it's leading. So I'm seeing a systematic deviation from the truth or fairness and data collection process, and leading questions designed in a way that prompts or influences respondents, parents to answer in a particular manner if they are really parents, thus potentially skewing the results toward the desired outcome. Now, I've got red flags going up because we've got the Equality Bill coming up in New South Wales, right? The Equality Bill. And we've noticed that one of the key people in the study comes from the Gender Centre. So they're going to be pushing those 3 gender identity bills in one, big time. So how objective or valid these studies are going to do, and what are they going to be used for? Because it's a highly politicalized subject, right? And anyone can respond to this without any proof that it's legitimate at all. Okay. So here's the thing too. Here's something that's leading as an example. Please indicate your level of support to the following questions. How would you rank your level of support for your child behaving in line with their affirmed gender identity when they're at home, at school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So the assumption is, that you should be affirming their identity. In other words, to be supportive of your child isn't to tell them, actually, Joey, you're not a girl, you're a boy, and that's okay. You're perfectly fine to be a boy. You can play like pink, you can like this and things like that. You're just a boy who likes those things. You're perfectly fine. There is bias in this straight away. Okay. And here's some things which are very typical of universities is this, this is condemning the patriarchy, critical race theory, is this idea of being white is really bad. So you have a look. You can be race ethnicity, okay? Does your gender diverse child identify with? That's a worry. Identify with. So either you are an Indigenous Australian, and again, what does that mean? How Indigenous is Indigenous. Can be a Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, Asian, okay. But you can be a Black or African Australian, but there's no white Australian. There's no European Australian. There's no, you know what I mean? There's white and you're a color. as opposed to, you know, from Europe or, you know, UK, South Africa, America, whatever. Okay, mixed race ethnicity, other please, blah, blah, blah. So that's a worry right there. Okay. Now, the other thing that's concerning me, particularly in light of Equality Australia, is there's always been a push against people who are religious, and there's been a push against people who are not progressive. And it's a nice word, isn't it, progressive? You know, it's like the idea that you're moving forward, etc. But we've seen progression has gone so far to the left that everyone has automatically been moved, even standing still, to the right. And what does it mean to be very conservative, you know, or slightly progressive or progressive? What does those words mean? You know, who's progressive? Who's conservative? What's the definition? And the same thing, what does it mean to be religious, slightly religious? What's if you're spiritual? What does that mean as opposed to religious? You know, what? There's no definition of terms here at all. It's really badly designed. And I had some other issues with the sloppiness of the questions. You know, it says, what are your perceptions of the outcomes of your child's social transition in relation to the extended family relations? So before they socially transition, how is this a rational question? What are your perceptions of the outcomes of your child's social transition before they socially transitioned? The outcomes of the social transition before they socially transitioned, so you didn't have any outcomes before? It's a really poorly put question. And then please indicate your level of agreement with the following statement regarding transgender people. What's if you don't think there are transgender people? What does a transgender people mean? Is this transsexual? Is this someone who is striving to present as the opposite sex and from medicalization? Or is it someone who just, you know, one day says, oh, I'm non-binary, which is, you know, what the fuck is that? Transgender people are not fundamentally different, blah, blah, blah. There's no definitions of terms here at all. You finished? Yeah, I think we have. All right. Okay. Stopped. All right, bye. That's my issues with that.